Hey everybody. We are getting into learn how to draw shrubbery, and we already have studied the artist Eyvind Earl, who was the main art director for the Disney film Sleeping Beauty. It's got a ton of like really amazing um, backdrops to it, and we're gonna get some brushes together for this project. But I wanted to really explain like how to use these brushes in a way that's meaningful to you. And so the two that we're going to download are called the concept set of brushes and then the stylized set. And if we look inside of here, you'll see concept brushes have leaves and grass and all kinds of stuff that we can work with in our landscapes here. And then the stylized set has a lot of the Eyvind Earl actual brush styles in it. So details for trees, branch clusters, etc. And I'll show you how we can use these in our project. But what we're going to start off with is just getting everything organized first. All right, so I'm going to fold this up and we're going to pretend this isn't here. We're going to start off doing this by going like this. We're going to hit at the bottom of the brush palette. You're going to see this folder and it says create a new group. I'm going to create a new group and I'm going to name it right off the bat Eyvind Earl. If you want to see that up close, there it is, pause or whatever, capture that. Press OK, and then you'll see down at the bottom, I've got a new folder, and in this folder, I'm going to put my other sets of brushes. When you start adding brushes, it can get really, there can be a lot, like in here, the seasonal brushes. Each one of these folders has like a ton of different brushes inside of it. And alcohol just gets a little bit confusing after a while, so we're going to organize things, like just so, like we did it on a computer. For our assignments, we'll put our project folder together and then we'll put our files into the project folder as necessary. But let's go ahead and download these brushes. I sent them to you through airdrop, and if you didn't get them, come see me and I will airdrop them or email them to you. Either way, they're going to come to your downloads folder. I have mine on my desktop. They look like this. They say conceptbrushes.abr and then Eyvind Earl set .abr, and what I'm going to do is just watch this technique here. So I'm going to start from underneath and then click and drag up like this to select those brush sets right there. Let me try it again. So from here, we'll just click and drag up and we'll lasso both of those. Great, there we go. And then what you want to do is right click, say open with. If it doesn't say Adobe Photoshop right here as the default, go ahead and choose other. And in your applications, what we're looking for is Adobe Photoshop. And I'm going to change the way I'm viewing this. But no, there we go. So Adobe Photoshop 2025. If you have any other versions, just ignore them. Go to 2025. Select it, press open, and what you'll see is down at the bottom of your folder, you're going to see two new folders. You see concept brushes and Eyvind Earl set. And what we're going to do is open that up, and there's two folders inside. What I want you to do is take the folder from concept brushes folder and put it into Eyvind Earl, and then take the stylized set from Eyvind Earl set and put it into our new Eyvind Earl category, and then fold that up. Select the other two, hold the shift key to select both of them at the same time, and then hit the delete key. Press OK, and those are out of the way, and now we're just working with these brush sets. So I put mine up at the top here, and you can see concept brushes and stylized set. Now, I want to talk about the concept brush right here first, these foliage brushes. So foliage just refers to leaves and things of that nature, and what we're trying to create is something along these lines. We're going to create the silhouette of our object, and then we are going to fill it with texture and depth. So we're going to work from the back forward. So we're starting at the very back with the background, adding the vignette, adding the silhouette, and then adding the details around the outside, including midtones, highlights, and details. I'm just going to kind of start from square one right here so you can see it. This is my background. I just created, here, I'll show you what I did. I went right here and created a new adjustment layer, and I chose solid color, And then I'm going to choose a color that's light and desaturated, not something that's really saturated, like pure color like this. Saturated means totally full of color. We want it to be desaturated. So it's not going to be pulling the attention, right? It's not going to be the focus because the plant that we're going to draw is going to be the focus. So we'll make a background like this. Make a new layer over the top. You can actually lock this down if you want to. Make a new layer over the top. And for this part, we're just going to choose our general brushes and choose the soft round opacity brush. Set this to about, I don't know, 1200, 1500, somewhere, yeah, like 1400. Reduce the flow, reduce the opacity, and then we're just going to draw around the outside like this. We're going to make what's called a vignette. And the vignette just kind of darkens the edges and leaves the middle bright. Now we bring our focus in towards the center. Let's go ahead and label this too. Okay, vignette, vignette. It's a French word. Means to without edges, to blend into the distance. Vignette. Okay. Next, we're going to add another layer over the top, and we're going to name this one. It's going to be silhouette. Also, French word. Silhouette. And the silhouette. For the silhouette, we are going to draw with a dark color. So we're going to choose that background color, and then we're going to choose a darker version of that color. You could pick other colors too if you want to. It's up to you, really. Let me go to color wheel here. There we go. So the outside rim here is the basic hue, the basic color that you're choosing. The inside is how much gray, how much white, how much black you're adding to this pure hue out here. So choosing along the way. I'm going to go real dark here because I want it to be in the background, but I am not going to choose a soft edge brush. I am going to choose a brush that has a much more defined edge to it. And one of the ones that I think is a good one for this is in the wet media brushes from just your basic brushes in Photoshop. In the wet media brushes, there's this one that says thick and thin. You can use any brush actually for this particular process as long as it has a soft edge. Like this is even a nice brush right here, Real Oils Round Wet Flex. And we can just, we're just going to draw in a shape. It's going to be the silhouette of our bush here. And we're just going to kind of like define it. Now, as you're defining this, notice I'm in a different layer. I'm in that silhouette layer. If you ever want to change anything, like take it all out, press Command A and just delete. That's everything from that layer is gone. Now, that was a rectangular shape, but you could also paint in a big circular shape. You know, you could do a football shape. There's all kinds of different shapes for trees. We're just kind of defining, and shrubbery. We're just defining the silhouette of it. What's the character of this particular tree? Maybe it's, you know, an inverted triangle because it's, you know, I don't know, giving danger or something. We do something like this. You could also, you know, do something like this, classic tree kind of shape, right? This is all just shrubbery, hedges. That's what we're thinking of. I'm going to go here with just this rectangular shape, so I don't do too much. I always try to do too much. Bring this down here. So there's our silhouette, right? And this is the starting point. Now, in the next step, this is where we're going to start getting into these new brushes. So I'm going to add this layer here. Actually, I'm going to work, I take that back. I'm going to work on the silhouette layer because it's going to be part of our silhouette. But here's the important part. We're going to get into the Eyvind Earl set that we just created. Oh, just tap it to open it. Yeah, and get into the concept brushes here. Now, this is where the lesson is coming in, is from here. So I'm going to turn us off just for a second so you can see. All these brush sets have like some interesting looks to them, right? So they have bunches and groups of foliage, and don't go too far down because these kind of get irrelevant here at some point. We're just focused on these groups at the top, so the foliage mix, and you can see there's a bunch of them. Fall color save, foliage color mix, foliage mix. I'm just going to go with this one right here, foliage mix 2, and I'm going to click on it, and what you're going to see is when I paint with it, it paints leaves. Right? And that's cool in and of itself, but let's make it a little bit bigger and then kind of see what's going on with this brush. So um, if I just tap the bracket keys, the keys that are to the right of the letter P on your keyboard, or you can adjust the size from here. Notice this is about 1200 pixels wide. And notice as I stamp, 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 each one is a different size as I do that. And that's because there are some settings on the brush that we need to adjust so that it is not so rhythmic. It's adjusting to things like the amount of pressure that I press down. The lighter I press, the smaller the mark. The heavier I press, the bigger the mark, right? But I want to control this a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is click on this button right here, and it's going to bring up the brush settings. Now inside of the brush settings, some things you should note right off the bat. You can change the size of the brush. You can choose a brush preset. You can adjust the spacing. So every brush, just so you know, every brush is just a series of stamps. And as we move those stamps nearer to each other, they overlap more, right? So it's the illusion of drawing something that's solid, but it's really just a bunch of overlapping stamps. So one thing we could do right off the bat is increase the spacing of the brush because we're trying to get some randomness around the outside. And then if we click here, we can go to shape dynamics. Now, if you notice right here, the size is being controlled by the pen pressure, and it will go to 50% less of its size. But I want to turn this off. I just want to have these be regular shapes. So if I go into here where it's controlled by the pen pressure, I'm going to turn that off and watch what happens down here in my preview. I don't get that heavy taper anymore because the size jitter is not controlled by the pressure. I'm going to reduce the size jitter just to 0 to have consistency around the outside of this. You can choose to have some variation in it, but let's take a look at the other things too. So there's an angle jitter, and as I slide this slider, you can see every stamp rotates a little bit differently than the last one. And sometimes that can be good for creating some randomness. It's controlled by the tilt of your pen. I'm going to turn this off as well, and then we take a look. What do you want it to be? Well, how random do you want it to be? All this is based on your personal preferences. And by the way, if you go back and click on this brush again, it will reset all of these things. It will not save as this. So another thing we can control is the roundness. So like imagine this is a circle and then we are rotating it on its side and it becomes an ellipse, right? That is controlled by the roundness jitter. I'm going to turn that one off as well. And so what I'm going to get is a new brush that does this. It's a lot more regular. I'm going to go into my scattering here next, and scattering refers to how far off of the axis of the line that they're being distributed, right? These stamps. So if I go further like this, they start to go randomly off of the main line right here down the center. I'm going to reduce this. I want it to actually stay kind of like where it is. And then the count I'm not going to include either. I'm not going to control the jitter here either. I'm just going to turn down the scattering so it's not so it's a little bit more regular. I'm at about 25% right here. These things are all adjustable for you. If you want to save this brush right here, you like all the settings for this brush, hit this button right here and you can save that brush. But I want to go back to the tip shape now because I want to show you the next step here. And it refers to this piece right here. And this piece right here shows us that we can rotate the direction of the initial stamp of the brush. So if I increase the size here and I stamp like this, and then I go in here and I rotate and I stamp like this, it's going a different direction. And that is something that we can use to our advantage. So if we go in here to our silhouette, and you don't have to do this, you don't have to get this accurate, but there are some brushes that do require you to make some adjustments here. So as I move around the outside, this one kind of has a round shape to it already, but I need to rotate this a little bit. It's pointing down right now. This direction, I'd like it to go this way, maybe rotate up a little bit. You can flip the shape as well and then rotate it again. So right here, I flip the y-axis so that the leaves are pointing up and out, right? And then I'm just going around the outside and I'm just adding some leaves around the outside, kind of blending the original shape of the silhouette with these now leafy marks. Okay, so that's adjusting the brush, and you can adjust all of these. I want to point out one where it's a little bit more important to pay attention to the direction that things are going. So it's this one right here called the Foliage Mix number 4, and there's different versions of each one. One's dry and one's wet brush. Oops, I drew in my vignette layer. Darn it, I'm going to go back. I want to draw in my silhouette layer. And let me choose this brush again. I got to go back and change the settings because I didn't save the brush. But that's okay. I'm going to control the angle, jitter, minimum roundness. Is not controlled by anything. That's going to be off. Scattering. Set to very low. And then shape dynamics, increase the spacing. And then we'll adjust. There we go. So now I'm in the right layer. Bigger brush. Bigger brush. And then rotate the direction here. This is going this way. And you can control these. Sometimes, it's like there's a too big and there's a too small. Find the happy medium. Find what's right for your tree that you're going to design, right? I want these to rotate out like this. They're actually going to be more up like, there it is. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm just dabbing at this and just like tapping at it. And you see every time I flip it, because it says flip Y, every time I tap it, it flips over the other direction. Just give me some variety and variation in the marks that I'm making, okay? Let's do the next part. Right here. We're going to lock. Actually, let's do a clipping mask. Let's go to the layer above it. This is layer 2, and this is going to be the midtones. And we're going to right-click on the layer right here, and we're going to go down to where it says create a clipping mask. Notice the shortcut is Option Command G. So Option Command G, or right-click, or double-click on the layer and choose Create a Clipping Mask, and then we'll see this little arrow right here. And that arrow tells us that we are only going to be drawing in where it's only going to show up where it overlaps this silhouette here. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter with my brushes here, just a little bit lighter, something that's like, boom, just like that, just a little bit lighter, because we're going to start out with adding some actually, you know what, I'm going to take that back a second. Let's go add some texture to this thing, okay? So in here, let's go to the stylized set. And let's look at some different brushes. Let's go in the concept brushes and see. We're looking for something that is going to be textural. And there's tons of more foliage brushes in here too. Foliage silhouettes, ground cover. There's all kinds of stuff in here. There's tons of different brushes inside of here. We are looking for something that's going to be like a kind of like a sponge stamp. This one looks pretty interesting right here. Let's see what that does. Oh yeah, that's killer right there. And I'm just going to paint some of this in through the middle here. Now watch, because it's a clipping mask, this layer only shows up where it overlaps this. If it's not a clipping mask, it's going to look like this. It's going to be painting outside of that area. But if we go like this, see it painting on the outside here? But if I right-click on this, or right-click and create a clipping mask, sorry, my bad. Now it only shows up where it overlaps the silhouette. Okay, so this will just create some interesting like forms inside. Again, just dabbing at it, not really painting heavily, but just sampling this brush. And then let's clear this out. Command A, delete, and I'm going to paint in here again. Deselect that. And just painting in some texture in here, right? That looks beautiful. Let's go a little bit darker, and let's add a different type of brush in here. We'll put in some darks. So we've got some darks and some light, and what we're doing is creating depth inside of this thing, right? So let's come back up here. A little brightness. Got some darkness in here. There we go. That's looking interesting now. Okay, there's more we can do. Let's do like a spatter brush. This says poster pressure. Let's see what this one looks like. I might do this over the top too to be able to adjust it. And I'm gonna label everything splatter. This one's gonna be the splatter brush. Oh yeah, nice spongy kind of look to it. That's good. This will bring some depth as well. And let's do a blend of darks and lights in here. So now we got texture, overlapping texture. Let's right click on these guys and make them clipping masks. And this one too, create a clipping mask. It's only going to show up where it overlaps the silhouette. Let's go back to splatter here. I'll go a little bit darker. Bring in some of this same spongy texture. So now we got a lot of variety on the inside. Textural qualities going on. What else we got? And again, I'm just looking through this stuff to see what is an interesting style here. Concept brushes. I probably don't need hair on this plant here, but small branches, that's one to highlight. Snowfall, it looks kind of interesting. I'd like a toothbrush splatter kind of thing, but I think this is gonna be good right here. We've got a lot of blends going on in this, and let's go ahead and add some leaves now. New layer over the top. This one's not going to be a clipping mask because we want it to be able to, I'm actually relabel this undertones, and then the splatter, and then over the top of that. Now we're going to go into our midtones here with the leaves. And I'm going to go back to, this one's called Ivy right here. That one's kind of interesting. I'll just take a look at the options here. There's tons of different brushes in these. I'm going to go back to these foliage brushes. And I'm going to focus on this one right here. I'm changing my mind. Remember, creativity is all about changing your mind. What if? What if I try this? Ooh, what if I tried this? It's this one right here. And the reason that I'm going to choose this one is some of the detail in it that I want to point out, which is that these are stems and they come out this direction. They start here and go out here. If you are painting these and they are going from here out to here, it's not going to look right. And so this is where we got to kind of get in with our brush. I'm going to go ahead and go a lot lighter here with this one. And then work on things like the spacing, the rotation. We can control the size jitter, that's okay. The roundness, I'm gonna have just stay, maybe I'll tilt that as well. The angle jitter, I'm gonna control the angle jitter. I'm gonna turn this off. Scattering, I want it to, yeah, we can scatter a little bit. It would kind of do the same thing here where it's about 20% or so. You can adjust that. It doesn't have to be exactly 20%. But the real trick here is adjusting the direction that it's going. So I'm not going to flip along X and Y. I'm just going to make it go out this direction. Let's go ahead and make the brush bigger. There it is. And then I want to rotate a little bit because I need it to seem like it's moving out this direction. And then down at the bottom, whoops, we're going to rotate so they're pointing down like this, right? Go to the outside. Excuse me. Shape dynamics. I'm actually going to turn the size jitter off. And just, whoops, and then just make some stamps and adjust the size. You can see that's exactly the size that this brush is going to be. And then I'm going to rotate this way. And go, pow, and then rotate up like this, pow. I maybe rotate out this way, pow, and down this way, pow. Sorry, make a lot of sound effects. And let's go this way. All kind of coming out of the center here, because the center here is where our viewer's eye is going to be. And we can adjust these. Let's go a little bit lighter on some of these. We'll just kind of create some variety. It's all coming out from the center right here. This is where the eye is, our viewer's eye is. And we're going to kind of bring these around like this. See this center point? Everything's going to radiate out from there. I'm going to do one more that goes like right here. Okay. And then now let's start to change the colors up a little bit. So we're going to make a new layer over the top. This one's going to be greenish layer. And I'm just going to add a little bit more color here and variety to my brushes. You can, by the way, you can also like paint your own colors in. These are going to be fall colors because this brush actually has a setting to it that's going to control the color. I'm not exactly sure where that is getting controlled from. Protect the texture. This brush has like a default color applied to it. I don't know if I can actually change it. That's interesting. Let's see if that shows. Oh yeah, it does show on this side. Oh, because here is, let's just say it's a clean brush. And then dry heavy load. And then every time we do this, we just have a clean brush. Let's choose a color. Let's go like this. Yeah, let's have some adjustments to make there. Let's see if that worked. Yes, it does. So if you followed along with that, this is a mixing brush right here, and it's made to blend things together. And one of the settings for it is you can choose that it's, by default, this had a palette of colors that were kind of like fall colors, and I want to change that. So I don't want it to have a loaded brush. I want it to have a clean brush. And then right here, I said every time I make a new mark, it's going to load the brush with this color again. And then right here, this said, let's go ahead and just, if you want to find out what these do, just hover over the top of them like this. You're going to kind of hold still for a sec. Clean the brush after every stroke and then load the brush so we're not accidentally mixing colors together. All right, you can play around with the wetness of the brush to see what kind of result that gives. But if we just see right here, I'm just going to go through and kind of stamp, and I think I'll adjust the color, and I'm just going to, oh, actually, I don't like the way that it's rotating there. So here's some shape dynamic stuff that I'm going to control as well. Size jitter is okay. Roundness, I do not want to change here. No, I take that back. I'm going to add a little bit of roundness. I think it's the angle jitter that I'm going to turn off. And then I'm just going to start stamping in here. Yeah, there we go. So now we see back in the background, we've got our darker areas. I'm actually going to darken that up a little bit more. And these guys can come out over the edges too, just to make a little bit of detail in here. Try switching up the tones so some of them are lighter, some of them are brighter. But we want to work from dark to light. So we're starting with the dark ones, and the dark, because the dark ones are underneath, right? We won't be able to see all the light that's being cast from there. And then we'll switch over and we'll go a little bit more light. Let's add a little bit more yellow to it for some variety. And you can get wild with your color schemes as well, but I'll show you a quick trick to change the colors of everything. That's kind of cool. Should you decide to do that. I'm going to go back to my undertone layer here now. Just working, just being creative and feeling the creativity here. Let's turn off the ones over the top, and I'll just take a look at these midtones. What I want to have happen here is I want this to be darker. So I'm going to sample this color, and I'm going to go even darker right in here. And then I'm going to bring in, this is called Bubbles, and I have the splatter layer over the top. Maybe I need to do this in the splatter layer. This one's called Bubbles. And there it is. Remember, this is a clipping mask, so you cannot go outside of the silhouette with this. There's no way you can. It just won't show up. So feel free to experiment. Okay, there's a little bit of darkness underneath. I'm going to put this one over the top. And I might change the blending mode here too. Just to see. Make it semi-transparent. There we go. That's looking kind of cool. Here's the mid-tone set over the top of that, and then here's the greenish set over the top of that. Now my inside's darker. I'm going to do a little bit more darks in the mid-tone layer, and I'm going to switch the brush a little bit too, so I'm going to add just some other dark colors in here as well. That brush is actually pulling from a different spot here. I'm going to darken these up just a little bit, and then let's bring this back over the top. Hey, it's looking good. And then let's do the details over the top. So now we're going to get into the details here. Add some more stuff here, and we're going to add some element of depth here as well. And some of the things I'm going to do here, I'm just going to look for kind of like abstract brush here. I'm actually going to try this bubble burst out, but what I want to do is bring some color into this, like there were flowers on this. There we go. Let's add in a little bit to it, and these can go out past the edge. Let's zoom in and see what that looks like. Yeah, they kind of give a sense of like floral arrangements. You can actually get in here and start to draw manually as well if you would like to. There's all kinds of things you can do. So if you want to get in here and start to draw in some hand-drawn pieces as well, this is a great place to do that. Here's a hard edge brush, and we can just go in and kind of draw some light. Draw some dark ones too, because maybe those are coming out from underneath. Mixing them up a little bit. Adjust the color. Add some elements that are unique. It's a quick technique for drawing branches and stuff. There's just kind of these rhythmic shapes going in. There's a main stem. Watch your pressure with this brush, right? Because if you press down too hard, you just get a thick line. But if you control it with real thin marks, oh, it's a pretty busy shrub. I'm going to go in here and add some red berries or something to this. This is the detail work right here. And it's just like, okay, what else is in here? And there's a lot more that we could do too, but this one's just our first experiment. I'm going to show you some amazing work from a student that we have here, Christian Sanchez, who is working on a demo of this project for me right now. Check this out. We could actually lock the pixels. This is a good one to know too. I'm going to lock the pixels of this layer. So clicking this button right here allows me to, anything that is not already drawn in, I cannot draw into. And so that's kind of cool to do stuff like this. Watch this as I zoom in here. I can paint with a darker color onto these circles that I drew, and I can actually paint with a lighter color too to create highlights, mid-tone, and shadow right there without having to be all fussy about like, you know, did I, am I, you know, too close to the edge? Did I overlap something? See the highlight? These are just little spheres here now. Highlight, mid-tone, shadow. This is kind of detail work that will get you hired if you are looking to, you know, pursue a career in something that you love or something that you're passionate about. These are the type of skills that would get you hired. Being able to recognize opportunities to do these things, and here we got some nice texture in here. And, you know, we're not 100% Eyvind Earl, but this is a lot like the technique that he uses. Painting from the back to the front. By the way, you can also do that on these too, because these are drawn in. So if you want to add some shadow in there, check that out. Because all the rest of the pixels are locked down, you just draw on these. Let's go back and sample this color, kind of figure out the in-between. There we go. There we go. See the roundness to it? We've got highlight, mid-tone, and shadow everywhere. Let's go back and sample this one. A little bit lighter here. That one's got a lot of splatters around the outside too, so it's kind of picking up those it's applying color to those too. So that is one thing that you want to watch out for. Separate the layers. You know, I probably should have separated this layer so I could have controlled it more easily. But there we go. There's some shadows, midtones, highlights on the berries, right? And then if you wanted to, you could add some darker berries like underneath here. Oh, that has to be a new layer because this is locked. Let's go and add in, change the size of the brush. There's a little cluster of berries. They're deeper underneath because they're darker. That's how we know that they're buried underneath there because they're darker than the rest, right? Can even mix some of the light ones with some of the dark ones here. This is what I was saying earlier. If I had put those on a separate layer, I can just go in now and do my detail work right on that brush, right on that layer. There it is. So let's go a little bit darker. Working in this one. Oh, that was from my earlier set. And this one's in this layer. Yep. Some highlights. I'm gonna zoom in even closer. Let's make this brush even smaller. Get a little bit more extra on the details here. Remember which layer's which. Ooh, there it is. Peak highlights right there. Look at that. Called the spectral light. Spectral is right out in front. That's the peak highlight. I'll switch back and forth here. Peak highlight. That's just the shine of the bright sun on these berries. Let's zoom out and see the whole thing. Okay, last step. Check it out. It's a beautiful shrub. Maybe even overworked. You know, there's a possibility it's even overworked. Let's say we wanted to change up. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's add one more thing here, and that is going to go in above the vignette and behind the silhouette. We're going to add in some shading underneath, and I need a nice brush that's going to allow me to do that. Let's take a look at what we have here. I might try this one, this blocking with the hue jitter. Okay, let's see, what are colors? Shadows. I'm going to choose violets. I'm going to reduce the opacity and the flow of this brush so I get a little bit of more control from it. There we go. I need a softer edge. Let's switch it up. I'm just going to do this soft brush right here. Let's do that. Underneath, I went back too many steps here. There we go. And the paint, ooh, yeah. So starting with the soft, see the cast shadow there, that really brings it home. And then I'm going to add a little bit of color jitter underneath like this. And let's go a little bit more blue also, so a little bit darker, a little bit more blue. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blur this layer a little bit. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and let's just see it. There it goes. It's still blurring out right there. Just get that preview in there. Make sure you got preview selected. And the weird thing is, I wish Photoshop just like took you to the section you were trying to look at. So that's what it looks like. The more I increase the blur, the more it blurs. I don't want to go too crazy with it, but maybe, I don't know, something like that, you know? There we go. Now, let's get back to, I said you could change the colors if you wanted to. Take a look at this. I'm going to take this greenish stuff right here, and I'm going to try and keep it more with the blues and violets. So, but I don't want to lose the style of the leaf, and I don't want to have to redo the whole thing. What you can do is this. Press Command U, and Command U, actually let's do it as adjustment layer. I take it back. Let's do it from right here. We're going to click on the circle, and we're going to adjust the hue and saturation of just this layer, and we only want it to clip onto this layer. So if you click this button, this is in your properties tab, this should pop up. If you click this button, this adjustment layer will only affect this layer. And what I want to do is just slide through the hues here. See the color changing? Oh, that's so beautiful. Look at that. Wow. I like that a lot better than the original green. Although you can make some variety and variation with all kinds of different colors. Look at this. You could switch up so much, and it changes all of the attitude of this particular image, right? It changes the whole feel of it. You can adjust the saturation, you can desaturate it, you can increase the saturation. Look at the intensity of that color right there. Woo! Now, and you can lighten it and darken it too. Um, Now, one last thing is that this is a creative project, and we're looking for you to be creative. We want you to be creative. We want you to do your own thing. I just wanted you to see the technique of including all of these different steps in your Photoshop drawing to take your drawings to the next level. Don't just sit where you're comfortable. Um, get into it and find the things that are going to make this thing interesting. I'm going to group all this stuff together and call it demo layer because I'm going to do this same drawing in class today. And that's it. That's Eyvind Earl. That's drawing like Eyvind Earl. Working from the silhouette, working from back to front. Next steps of things I might want to do with this. I might go into I have some digital drawing resources, and I think I have some textures and stuff in here. Let me see what I got. Oh yeah, paper textures. Check this out. And I share these things with you too. Paper textures. Let's take a look. So if you want this, maybe we wanted this to look like it was on paper, painted on paper. Well, check out the texture of this paper right here. We can take this thing and we can put this onto I'm going to just hit the space bar right here so I can preview it. Oh, that one's cool. That has an aged look to it, right? And they're just different styles here. That one says hit 'em low in it. I don't really want that one. And this is where these are samples from that particular company. If you wanted to help support them, you could buy some. Textures from them. These are just samples that they give out for free. So I'm gonna just use them as a demo here. I'm gonna just drag and drop and increase the size of this. I'm not gonna worry too much about the distortion of this, but what you got to do next is you want to mess around with the blending mode right here. And so what that might look like is working with multiply. The color burn looks pretty good. This multiply layer, because it has a color in it, it's going to bring some of that color into this. But look, now you get the paper texture over the top of your painting, and this is how we really get some fantastic looks to and aged looks to our work. If you want to desaturate this, you can select this layer. I think the shortcut is Shift Command U. No, it's not. Let me go to Edit, Image Mode. There's a desaturate. Where's desaturate? Layer. Man, I used to know all these things. Let's go back. I'm getting older. Let me get this one last thing. I'm going to just type in desaturate. There it is. Adjustments, desaturate. Okay, and I'm going to choose that for this. Oh, you know what? I'm going to rasterize it first. Right-click and rasterize the layer, and then Shift-Command-U. That's it. I did know it. Shift-Command-U. So that took the color out of it and just left it as black and white. And now, look at that. It looks like freaking it's painted on paper. What the heck, man? That was awesome. Okay. Save your work. Command S. Bam. Painting a bush with texture. And I'm going to actually put on the front of it too. Eyvind Earl. The musicians are here. It's time to go. Kicking me out. I'm going to save that work. Oh, it says no. Let's do this. Eyvind Earl. I couldn't put spaces in. I got to put an underscore. Painting a bush. All right. Let's go ahead and save it. And that's it. And that's I'll post this up to YouTube. You guys can follow along with it if you need.